What if Europe wasn't what you thought it was?
What if the city that once divided empires is now where East and West live side by side, not just in architecture, but in daily life? And what if the place most people overlook is where you feel Europe's heart the most? We came to Sarajevo for its history and left changed by its people. A city that's creative, complicated, and quietly extraordinary.
It's not slick or predictable, but that's exactly why it stayed with us.
This is the Europe you don't expect, and it might just change the way you see the rest of it. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Find Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, surrounded by mountains on all sides and divided by the Miljaca River.
I always like when there's a river in a city. It gives us a point of reference that someone can say, just walk towards the river and you know to turn left or right to figure out where you're going.
We stayed near the Academy of Fine Arts, just across the river from Old Town. It was quieter and a little cheaper, but Old Town has the pulse of the city. The bridge near the Academy is part art, part shortcut. Locals call it festina lente, make haste slowly.
The city even had to add stoppers to keep skateboarders from looping through the metal arc.
While neighborhoods climb high into the hills, most of what you'll want to see, Old Town, museums, cafes, and markets, sit right at the base of the valley. This area gets a 4 out of 5 on our mobility scale.
Just a few minutes walk from the river, locals gather in Liberation Square.
We were delighted to discover a chessboard the size of a living room, and locals gathered for a serious game of giant chess. There's plenty of good-natured ribbing and kibitzing from the sidelines. For a city that's lived through so much, it's comforting to see that the only kind of battle happening here now is one built on laughter, strategy, and friendship.
In most European cities, the Old Town belongs to tourists. So it was a surprise and honestly a joy to see how many locals are still woven in Sarajevo's Old Town.
This is Buregdžinica. The name means the main market or bazaar, and it's been the city's heart since the Ottomans ruled here in the 1400s. After dinner with friends one night, we introduced them to Bosnian coffee. The cafes were full of locals, not tourists, and we loved it.
Just steps away is the Sebilj Fountain, where horses once drank and people still do. And no matter when you visit, there are always pigeons.
Down Coppersmith Alley, you hear the same rhythm you would have heard 4 centuries ago, the steady tap of hammers. It's a trade that's been passed down in families for generations.
Yeah. These lines I just made here in the...
We were struck by the resilience and ingenuity of these craftsmen who transformed bullets and bombshells from the war of the 1990s into vessels of beauty and art. Our stomachs were growling, so we decided to make our way to Buregdžinica Sač, where they bake the city's favorite comfort food, burek, which is made the old-fashioned way, coiled in a spiral and cooked under a sač, a heavy bell-shaped lid covered in coals.
Are we good?
I think so. Now, it is hard because I kind of do want to taste the spinach and feta, but the meat is always so good. So this will be, I feel like, a truer comparison with Mostar.
Yeah, and it's one of our guidelines that we don't follow all the time is I'm a bit hangry, so searching around for restaurants, we should have done this a little bit before we got hungry.
It just took us longer than we wanted it to find this particular spot.
It happens.
Ask for a side of yogurt for dipping.
So I guess if you get the whole ring, that's a kilogram.
Yeah, which I think would be quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's tasty. I feel like this is a little soggy compared to what we had in Mostar.
Oh, but it's good. I like it. And you said this was cooked under the dome, which is on all their signs.
Under the bell.
Under the bell, sorry. So you can see it in the signs and the lights. Kind of looks like a wok with a cover.
It was flaky, rich, and is the kind of simple food that tastes like someone's grandmother still makes it. It's traditional, hearty, and comforting.
Expect to hear the call to prayer from the Gazi Husrev Beg Mosque, and a few minutes later, church bells from the neo-Gothic Sacred Heart Cathedral, where Pope John Paul II came to pray after the war.
The
cathedral was reconstructed after the war. The damaged parts were reconstructed, but this part they left it like this on purpose for commemoration.
Not far from there are the copper domes of the Serbian Orthodox Church. There's also a Jewish synagogue standing quietly nearby. In most cities, this mix might feel unusual, but these religions coexist peacefully side by side. We give Old Town a 4 out of 5 for mobility. Here on Ferhadija Street is a simple brass line that marks where east meets west, literally. On one side are the domes, minarets, and low Ottoman buildings of Bas Çarşıya. On the other is Austro-Hungarian facades, pastel, elegant. These buildings would be right at home in Vienna.
What's extraordinary isn't that these worlds exist side by side, it's that they still do. Sarajevo never chose one identity over the other. It learned to hold both. Just across the river from City Hall stands one of Sarajevo's most charming landmarks, a small wooden house called Ina Kuća, the House of Spite.
When the Austro-Hungarians planned this area in the 1890s, one homeowner refused to sell. After weeks of pleading, he finally agreed on one condition. Every stone and beam had to be moved, piece by piece, across the river. The rebuilt house still stands today, but it's now a Bosnian restaurant. This quiet act of defiance captures Sarajevo itself. Pushed, tested, yet always standing its ground.
We met up with Mark and Joanne, fellow full-time travelers, at Nanina Kuhinja, a restaurant known for its authentic Bosnian comfort food. You'll want to make sure to get a reservation in advance. I went for the goulash, Judy had dolma, grape leaves stuffed with rice and meat, and we shared a shopska salad. We were so glad for the opportunity to slow down and share a meaningful conversation with friends.
If you follow the river, you'll come to a corner near the Latin Bridge, which is where Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were assassinated in 1914, setting off World War I. A generation later, the Eternal Flame was lit to honor Sarajevo's resistance against fascism in World War II. It's never gone out, not even during the siege of the 1990s, and it's come to symbolize the city's enduring spirit. After the World Wars, Sarajevo became part of socialist Yugoslavia under President Tito. Not Soviet-style communism, but its own path between East and West. You can still see that era in the city's concrete housing blocks and modernist buildings. They're not particularly dazzling, but they were built to be sturdy, long-lasting, and affordable.
When Sarajevo hosted the 1984 Winter Olympics, those same ideals of progress and unity took center stage. Today, those buildings look plain and utilitarian, but to the people of Sarajevo, they're reminders of a time when the city looked forward.
We took a tour that brought us face to face with the part of Sarajevo most travelers only read about. Our guide, Salim, was a veteran who fought through the siege, a war he said they were never supposed to win. He lost his brother, his cousin, and many friends. There was no official army, just neighbors and fathers defending their homes. We weren't soldiers, he told us. The fight was only supposed to last 7 days, but it lasted 4 years.
Our first stop was an ordinary-looking house hiding something extraordinary beneath it. The entrance to Sarajevo's Tunnel of Hope, the lifeline that kept the city alive during the siege. The walls outside are still pockmarked with bullet holes, reminders of how close the front lines once came. Across the road, hidden behind a wall of vines, Salim brushed back the leaves and showed us what's left of another entrance, a collapsed tunnel opening on the city side.
When the city fell under siege in 1992, Sarajevo was completely cut off. It had no power, no supplies, no safe way in or out. The United Nations controlled the airport and brought in humanitarian aid, but civilians couldn't get to it. So Sarajevans did something extraordinary. They dug a tunnel beneath the airport, by hand, in secret, and under sniper fire, working around the clock for months. It connected the city to the free Bosnian territory on the other side. Through this narrow passage came everything the city needed to survive: food, medicine, fuel, weapons, even hope. The tunnel ceiling was so low that soldiers had to crouch as they moved through knee-deep mud and icy water, carrying 50-pound loads in darkness.
This is not easy. I can't imagine doing this with equipment. And the cold, and the water, the mud. I don't even know. And they did that for years. It's amazing people.
Salim said Sarajevo didn't survive because it was stronger, It survived because it refused to give up.
So, wake up call, huh?
Yeah, I think it's just incredibly powerful, the motive that the Bosnian people had to fight for their country and
Save their family.
save their families.
They had the motivation. The other side, they said the only motivation was to kill.
Yeah, it's terrible and hard to fathom. And just like even building this tunnel as an opportunity to go and get supplies and everything. Where would this country be if they didn't have that? They would not have lasted.
No, and they wouldn't have had the border still open on the mountainside, which is what saved them from getting completely blocked in.
Yeah. Very powerful.
From there, we drove along what used to be Sniper Alley, the main road that cuts through Sarajevo. The city sits in a narrow valley surrounded by 4 mountains, breathtaking but deadly once the hills filled with artillery. From the hills above, snipers could see nearly every street.
Afterwards, we drove to the yellow fortress above Old Town. We could see why Sarajevo was so vulnerable. It's a city in a bowl surrounded on all sides by mountains. Those same slopes once echoed the cheers from the 1984 Olympics, less than a decade before the siege. Now looking out over the city, it's hard not to feel both awe and disbelief.
Back on the ground, Sarajevo remembers in quieter ways.
Look down at the sidewalks and you'll eventually notice small bursts of red in the pavement, the Roses of Sarajevo.
Each one marks where lives were lost during the siege of the 1990s. They're quiet memorials the city has learned to live alongside. They're outside schools and cafes, near street corners and parks. Salim even pointed out one outside the entrance to the Tunnel of Hope Museum. Sarajevo doesn't try to hide its wounds. It builds around them. If you ever thought Sarajevo was frozen in time, just look at its walls. We took a street art and history tour, and Alan showed us how even the concrete buildings that once were gray and uninviting have become canvases. After the war, the city didn't cover its scars. It gave them color. Murals of musicians, tributes to victims, surreal scenes, and everyday life like this vintage car stretch across cracked facades. Reminders that life goes on.
The street art here isn't rebellion, it's resilience. Not every part of Sarajevo could afford to be restored, so local artists get the permission of tenants of damaged buildings that are in the back streets of the city to transform the damage into art. They host festivals to raise funds for the paint and scaffolding, turning tragedy into beauty.
And then in the 20 years anniversary, we decided to bury the uncle. So at that time I feel that I need to paint something. And this is a mural that I paint almost alone. It was just one guy helped me.
Wow.
To paint it. And I decided to be on this place, to have this like the shape of the background to look a bit destroyed and stuff like this. It's my view of it.
We decided to take the cable cars up to the summit of Trebević Mountain.
So you're going to take the cable cars, and it's going to take you to the top of the mountain, but you have to work for it because there's plenty of stairs first. Let's go.
It's a very warm day today. Almost as warm as yesterday. So we'll see how cool it is at the top. It's certainly hot on the stairs. Oh, but look. Little benches if you get tired on the way up.
35 steps.
There you go.
I lost count, so I don't know for sure, but it was at least 103 steps. Could have been more.
There is a road that you can go via cab or whatever to get to the back of the cable car station. So that is a way to avoid the steps.
In 1984, Sarajevo hosted the Winter Olympics, the first ever held in a socialist country. It was a moment in time for pride and unity. A decade later, those same slopes became front lines during the siege as Yugoslavia was being ripped apart. The bobsled run turned into a bunker, and the road up the mountain was lined with landmines and sniper fire.
And here's where we watch Judy go down the bobsled.
Whee!
It's, doesn't look like a wee. It looks like, ow, 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 ow. Bobsledding. Or bob walking.
Gosh, I thought it was Kevin.
You have a bobbin.
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
I wouldn't want to slip down this in the winter, though.
Oh,
I think you would go all the way down.
The bobsled track, despite being cracked and overgrown, now is an open-air gallery covered in murals. What once was a front line is now a place for picnics and art. It's proof that joy can return to even the unlikeliest places.
One of our viewers told us a story about a rare 600-year-old Jewish manuscript, the Sarajevo Haggadah. It's a richly illustrated Jewish text used during Passover that's housed in a small room inside the National Museum. It's only on display on Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon to 1 p.m. For centuries, people of every faith risked their lives to protect this rare book. Muslims, Catholics, Jews, through wars and occupations. In more recent times, a Muslim librarian risked his life to hide it from the Nazis who came for it by saying that it had already been turned over. He ended up protecting it by hiding it in what some say were the floorboards of a mosque. This single act of humanity captures Sarajevo's essence: ordinary people protecting things because they are important.
When you want a quick but traditional meal in between sightseeing, one of our favorite everyday meals was cevapi with onions, warm bread, and a side of fries. The sausages here were the perfect texture, and the location was great. Sarajevo isn't trying to be the next big thing. It may not be as popular as Vienna or Istanbul, though you'll see traces of both. And it's not a place where you build a checklist of top 10 things to see and do. But we're really glad we visited and learned from people like Alan and Salam, and shared time with fellow travelers.
Sarajevo's history and its people are profound and inspiring, and we came away different and better from having walked its streets. This city just keeps being itself. It's layered, surprising, and unhurried. Sarajevo refuses to choose just one identity, and we think it's stronger for it.
Before we go, if you're curious about what it actually costs to spend 24 days in Sarajevo, here's what we spent. This is proof that meaningful travel doesn't have to be expensive. It costs $36 to take a bus from Mostar to Sarajevo. Our accommodations near the university across the bridge from Old Town were $1,147, which breaks down to $48 per night. We originally planned to spend a month, so the book cost us $38 per month, but we had to pivot to the US to see a sick family member. Taxi rides from the bus station to the airport cost $59. Restaurants and groceries were a total of $605, which breaks down to be $25 per day. Tours and activities were $94. That's a grand total of $1,941. Excluding travel from Mostar, the total is $1,905. Which breaks down to $79 per day or $40 per person per day. This makes Sarajevo one of the most cost-effective places in Europe we've ever stayed. If you're curious what resilience looks like beyond Sarajevo, check out our video from Mostar, one of the most beautiful and interesting cities in the Balkans.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, we'd love for you to do that.
And remember to
Wander more
worry less.
and bring a passport.
Until next time.
Until next time.